The United States of America is panicking. And it's not subtle anymore. It's loud, defensive, and slipping through the cracks in places it never used to. And if you blinked this week, you might have missed the moment when that panic slipped out on live radio. Because this didn't come from Donald Trump. It didn't come from a campaign rally or a late-night post. It came from the sitting U.S. ambassador to Canada, Pete Hoekstra, speaking plainly, without hesitation, into a microphone. When asked a simple question, does the United States need Canada? He answered flatly, no, we do not need Canada. No pause. No nuance. No diplomacy. And that one sentence tells you everything you need to know about what's really happening behind the scenes.
The president of the U.S. yesterday at the factory at Ford in Dearborn, and he says, we don't need their products. We don't need the cars made in Canada. And he said it about so many Canadian products, lumber, steel, energy, you name it. So what is it, Ambassador Hoekstra? Do you need us or do you not need us?
Well, I think the key operative word is need. All right? No, we do not need Canada.
Now here's the question you should be asking right away, and it's the one Washington doesn't want you asking. If the US truly didn't need Canada, why say it out loud? Why say it now? Why say it the exact same week Canada locked in historic deals with China, and the very same day Mark Carney landed in Qatar to line up the next wave? Because timing is everything. And this wasn't confidence. This was panic showing through the cracks. Let's slow this down and walk through the sequence, because the order of events matters more than the events themselves. Canada didn't just make noise. It made moves. Big ones. Under Mark Carney, Canada concluded what can only be described as a blockbuster reset with China. Electric vehicle tariffs slashed. Canola tariffs crushed. Visa-free travel announced. Chinese EV manufacturing now officially on track for Canada. This wasn't symbolic. This was structural. This was Canada reopening doors that Washington had long assumed were closed, or at least locked behind US permission. And the moment those doors opened, alarms started ringing south of the border. But here's the part most people missed. Carney didn't stop there. He didn't hold a press victory lap. He didn't slow the momentum. He didn't wait to see how Washington would react. Instead, he got on a plane and landed in Qatar, one of the richest capital hubs on the planet. To do something far more unsettling for the United States than any single trade deal. He went to attract massive long-term investment for Canadian infrastructure, energy, transportation, and strategic industries. And that's when Pete Hoekstra's tone snapped. Because ambassadors don't say, "We don't need you," unless they feel the ground shifting beneath them. Hoekstra wasn't responding to theory. He wasn't answering a hypothetical. He was responding to momentum. Canada wasn't asking permission anymore. And that's what unnerved him.
So this is the first trip by a sitting prime minister in Canada to visit Qatar. How significant is that?
Very important because, of course, as we understand, these Gulf states are cash rich. And I like the way Annie Bergeron-Oliver set it up. She's saying, look, they're trying to find countries where they can invest and their money won't disappear and you can have an honest court system and the rule of law and so forth. So that's one of the advantages of being a democracy. Now, not all the countries that we work with or trade with are democracies. We just got a good taste of that with the visit to China. But the overall approach here that Carney has been taking for the past, 10 months or so since he became prime minister is essentially, we've got to find new partners. We've got to make deals around the world. We've got to sell Canada's best assets. And that includes selling us as a safe place to invest.
Here's what most of the mainstream coverage is missing entirely. Hoekstra's comment wasn't really about trade. It wasn't about autos, lumber, or supply chains. It was about control. For decades, Washington's leverage over Canada rested on one quiet assumption: Canada had nowhere else to go. China shattered that assumption. Qatar threatens to finish the job. And this is where the distinction becomes critical, so don't miss it. China is about trade access. Qatar is about capital power. And that difference changes everything. Trade deals move goods. Capital reshapes countries. Capital builds ports, grids, factories, transit systems, energy networks. Capital locks in growth for decades. And Qatar isn't just another stop on a diplomatic itinerary. It's one of the most influential investment hubs on Earth, with sovereign wealth measured in the hundreds of billions, and a long-term investment horizon that stretches far beyond election cycles and political mood swings. When Mark Carney lands in Qatar, he's not negotiating tariffs or quotas. He's pitching Canada as a safe, stable, long-term destination for global capital. Infrastructure, energy, transportation, strategic industries. The kind of investment that doesn't leave quietly once it arrives. The kind of money that reshapes a country's trajectory for generations. And that's why this trip matters more than China in one crucial way. Once capital chooses a country, it doesn't casually pack up and leave.
Well, I think that what he's doing is he's basically selling himself, selling Canada, and selling the ability to attract investment for big projects that he's already thinking of. We do have some of them already on the table, but you can imagine how important it would be for them to be able to say, okay, what if we invest in this high-speed railway? What if we invest in this new pipeline? What if we invest in these new projects in the north, these new infrastructures that are going in? We know we're going to get our money back. It's good for them, for their country, and it's good for Canada because we have access to large sums of money.
So what actually rattled Washington? China showed Canada had options. Qatar shows Canada has backing. Trade partners can come and go. Capital alliances don't. And when Gulf states begin seeing Canada as a preferred destination for large-scale investment, it sends a message that every major financial center in the world understands instantly. Canada is no longer operating under the U.S. economic shadow. And U.S. officials know exactly what that means. Because once global capital flows diversify, pressure stops working. Tariff threats lose their bite. Trade bullying loses its leverage. Diplomatic tantrums stop moving markets. The old tools stop functioning. And that's why Pete Hoekstra's comment mattered so much. It wasn't defiance. It was anxiety. Because a Canada that is funded, diversified, and globally connected is a Canada that cannot be coerced. And that is the scenario Washington was never prepared for. But Donald Trump made inevitable. For decades, the United States never had to say, we don't need Canada. Canada was simply assumed. Integrated supply chains. Automatic alignment. Autos. Energy. Lumber. Defense. The relationship ran on habit and trust. And then Trump broke it. He chose threats over trust. Tariffs over stability. Unpredictability over partnership. And in doing so, he forced Canada to do what any rational country would do when faced with an unreliable partner: find alternatives. Now those alternatives aren't theoretical anymore. They are materializing. Faster than Washington expected. And that's why Hoekstra sounded unsettled. Because this isn't Canada drifting. This is Canada decoupling strategically. Here's the irony Washington doesn't want to face. The US didn't lose Canada because Canada changed. It lost Canada because Trump made the United States unreliable. Carney didn't set out to sideline the US. He responded to being sidelined. And now, when American officials say, we don't need Canada, what they are really admitting is something far more revealing. They no longer get to dictate Canada's choices. And that loss of leverage is permanent.
And I would dare say, Renee, that one of the advantages of Mark Carney is that he's Mark Carney. When he walks into a room, he doesn't have to show the color of his socks. Everybody knows this guy. Everybody knows him from when he was, of course, governor of the Bank of Canada, but they really know him from when he was the governor of the Bank of England. And he helped do everything to keep that country afloat as they went through the absolute unpredictable chaos of Brexit, leaving the European Union. So yeah, Carney is one of Canada's great natural resources right now.
Now let's talk about what happens next, because this moment didn't come together by accident. It came together because of leadership, and specifically because of how Mark Carney understands power. Not as slogans. Not as posturing. But as systems. Trade. Capital. Confidence. Credibility. That's why these moves are landing. China didn't just sign deals. It trusted the process. Qatar didn't just agree to meetings. It opened doors. Global investors aren't just watching from the sidelines. They are engaging. And that kind of trust isn't built overnight. It's built slowly and then revealed all at once. So here's the cliffhanger Washington is now staring at. Canada has options. Canada has partners. And Canada has a prime minister who knows how to use both without burning bridges or begging for approval. What comes next won't be announced in a single press conference. It will show up quietly, then unmistakably. In investment flows. In factories being planned. In infrastructure projects breaking ground. In capital choosing Canada over chaos. And once that path is set, it's hard to reverse. That's what has Washington rattled. Not anger. Not ideology. Reality. The real question now isn't whether Mark Carney can keep building this momentum. It's how Washington responds to a Canada that is no longer waiting to be told what it's allowed to do. So let me ask you this, and I want you to really think about it. Is Washington losing Canada because it doesn't need us? Or because it pushed us away? If you want clear, no-nonsense analysis as Canada rewires its global position in real time, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Is this the beginning of Canada's strategic independence, or just the opening chapter of something even bigger?